Look, I have been working as a trade compliance officer for the Collodian Commerce Guild for 73 cycles now, and I have seen my fair share of pompous, self-important gatherings, but nothing, absolutely nothing, compared to the annual Galactic Summit held at the Centauri Imperial Palace on Core and Prime. The hall itself was obscene. Seriously. Columns made entirely of compressed starlight, floors so polished you could see your reflection judging you for even standing there, and chandeliers that cost more than some planet's entire gross domestic product. The whole place screamed, "We have money and you do not, so kindly remember your place." I stood near the refreshment table, which was less a table and more a floating data platform of exotic delicacies that I could not pronounce, let alone afford. Around me, the galaxy's finest preened and postured. To my left, Ambassador Quill Nux of the Brain Collective was boasting about his species' recent expansion into the outer bands. His scales shimmered with that insufferable iridescence that Bryn got when they were particularly pleased with themselves. To my right, a cluster of Morgoth delegates clicked their mandibles in what I assumed was laughter, though it sounded more like someone breaking expensive dishware. Everyone who was anyone had shown up. The Drax Iam Consortium sent their High Chancellor. The Pliocene Union sent 3 representatives, because apparently one go was not enough. Even the Recluse of Sithrak Collective sent an observer, who spent most of their time hovering in a corner, literally because they had no legs. And then there was Princess of Allura. Oh boy, where do I even start with her? Princess Valor of the Centauri Empire swept through the hall like she owned it. Well, technically her father did, but she carried herself like she had personally conquered every day-star system in attendance. Her skin had that characteristic Centauri purple-silver shimmer, and her ceremonial robes probably violated several conservation laws with the amount of rare materials woven into them. She moved with an entourage of 6 attendants, who looked absolutely miserable, which, honestly, fair enough. The Centauri were the unofficial rulers of this sector, and Valor made sure nobody forgot it. She had this way of looking at people, or rather through people, like they were particularly boring holographic displays she had to tolerate. But you know who she really looked through? Humans. Oh yes, the humans. Those strange little bipeds from that water-soaked rock called Earth out in the double arm of the Milky Way. They had joined the Galactic Council maybe 30 cycles ago, and most species still treated them like the help. Weak gravity worlders, no natural armor, no venom, no telepathy, nothing impressive. They were basically the galactic equivalent of that neighbor who shows up to a formal dinner in casual clothes. Technically invited, but why? I had seen human delegates at these functions before. They usually kept to themselves, spoke when spoken to, and generally tried not to make waves. Smart strategy, honestly. Why paint a target on yourself when the galaxy's elite were already competing for who could be the most condescending? Little did I know that attitude was about to get spectacularly corrected. The grand entrance doors opened with that unnecessarily dramatic hiss that the Centauri loved so much, and in walked the human delegation. Well, delegation was a generous term. It was one human, a single representative, because apparently Earth could not afford to send more, or did not care enough, or maybe they just figured one human was already one too many for this crowd. Her name was Mira Chin, and honestly she did not look like much, at least not by galactic standards. She stood maybe 1.7 meters tall, which was laughably short compared to most species present. No bioluminescence, no impressive horns or crests, just dark hair pulled back in a simple style, a plain diplomatic uniform, and a data pad clutched under one arm. She looked like an intern who had wandered into the wrong conference room. The reaction was immediate and predictable. Conversation did not stop exactly, but it shifted. Voices dropped to that particular frequency reserved for gossip and judgment. I watched Ambassador Quill Nux lean towards his aide and whisper something that made them both flash their teeth in what passed for rent amusement. Mira walked through the hall with measured steps, nodding politely to anyone who made eye contact. Most did not. She might as well have been invisible furniture for all the attention the assembled dignitaries gave her. Except Princess Valor. Oh, she noticed. I watched as Valor tracked the human's progress across the hall with the expression of someone who had just discovered something unpleasant stuck to her shoe. She turned to her closest attendant and said loudly enough for half the hall to hear, "They actually sent someone. How quaint. I suppose even the charity cases deserve representation." Her entourage laughed, that awful sycophantic laughter that court followers perfect over years of practice. Mira's expression did not change. She found a spot near one of the outer columns away from the main clusters of delegates. Smart positioning, actually. Close enough to be present, far enough to avoid trouble. She pulled up her datapad and began reviewing something, apparently content to wait for the formal proceedings to begin. But Valor was not done. The princess drifted closer to where Mira stood, her entourage following like a remora fish. She did not address the human directly. That would be beneath her. Instead, she spoke to her attendants while standing close enough for Mira to hear every word. "I heard humans require 16 hours of unconsciousness each cycle just to function. 16 hours! Can you imagine being so inefficient? And they eat by grinding up organic matter with calcium deposits in their mouths. Absolutely primitive." One of her attendants tittered nervously. Another made a show of examining their claws. Mira kept her eyes on her datapad. Her jaw tightened slightly, just slightly, as she said nothing. "And their planet," the Laura continued, warming to her subject, "is mostly water, 70%. What kind of species covers their homeworld with undrinkable liquid and then complains about resource scarcity?" I felt uncomfortable watching this, which was surprising because I generally didn't care about diplomatic squabbles. But there was something about the casual cruelty, the public humiliation that felt wrong even by summit standards. Mira finally looked up from her datapad. She met Valor's eyes for exactly 2 seconds, then returned to her work without saying a word. Somehow, that silence felt more powerful than any response could have been. Valor's face flushed deeper purple. She was not used to being ignored. She opened her mouth to say something else, something probably even more cutting, when the ceremonial gong sounded. The formal summit was about to begin. Everyone started moving toward the assembly chamber, and that's when it happened. The corridor leading to the assembly chamber was wide enough to fit a small transport vehicle, but somehow, with hundreds of delegates funneling through, it became a bottleneck of egos in expensive robes. I was maybe 10 meters behind when it happened, close enough to see everything, too far away to do anything about it. Not that I would have. I value my job, thank you very much. Mira was walking along the right side of the corridor, keeping to herself, still reviewing something on her datapad. Princess Valora was holding court in the center, her entourage spread around her like a living barricade, forcing other delegates to navigate around them. The princess changed direction suddenly. No warning, no acknowledgement that other beings existed in her vicinity. She just turned, and her trajectory put her directly in line with Mira. They collided, not hard, just a brush of shoulders. Mira stumbled slightly, her datapad slipping from her grip and clattering to the polished floor. "Oh," Mira said immediately, bending down to retrieve it. "Excuse me, I did not see." She did not get to finish. Valora's hand shot out, palm first, and shoved Mira squarely in the shoulder hard, the kind of shove you give someone when you want them to know they're beneath your notice. Mira staggered backward, catching herself against the wall. Her datapad skidded across the floor, stopping at the feet of a shocked, more gassy delegate. The corridor went silent, completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop, if pins existed in this technological era, which they didn't, but you get the idea. "Watch where you are going, human," Valor said, her voice dripping with contempt. "Or do your kind lack the basic spatial awareness to navigate a simple hallway?" Mira straightened slowly, very slowly. She brushed off her uniform with deliberate care, then walked over to retrieve her datapad from the more gassy delegate, who handed it to her with visible discomfort. "My apologies, Princess," Mira said, her voice level and pro-professional. "It was an accident." "An accident," repeated Valor, as if the word tasted foul. "An accident is when two equals momentarily occupy the same space. This was you failing to show proper deference to your superior." Oh no, this was getting bad. I saw several delegates exchanging nervous glances. Ambassador Quill Nux had stopped entirely, his scales losing some of their shimmer. Even the Sithrak observer had rotated to watch. "I have already apologized," Mira said carefully. "If there is a specific protocol I have failed to observe, I would be happy to—" "You," Valora interrupted, stepping closer, "should not even be here. Humans contribute nothing to the Galactic Council, except bureaucratic delays and tedious moral arguments. You are a drain on resources, a waste of translation bandwidth, and an embarrassment to civilized species everywhere. The crowd was growing. More delegates had stopped to watch. Some looked entertained. A few looked genuinely uncomfortable. Most just looked curious to see how this would play out. Mira took a slow breath. I could see her choosing her words carefully, weighing every syllable. With respect, Princess, I am here as an accredited representative of Earth and its colonies. I have every right to attend the summit, and I have done nothing to warrant this level of hostility. Right, Valora leered, and it was not a pleasant sound. You speak of rights as if you have earned them. Your species has been part of the Council for barely 30 cycles. My family has ruled the Centauri Empire for 6,000 years. You do not have rights here. You have privileges that can be revoked. She stepped even closer, close enough that Mira had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. Now you are